Well, I think it's a very interesting question. I don't really know the answer to how you construct yourself. I think, I remember when I was a little girl, I was about 7 or 8, and I had realized that I had not been myself in my own head for so long that I didn't remember what my own voice sounded like in my head, because I was always playing in my head. So then I thought, where's my voice? And I had to actually invent my own voice. I had to make it up, because I didn't have a thinking voice. And you realize that you just take for granted that you have a thinking voice. You think, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. I'd really love to do this. And like, what happens if that's for some reason missing? And that, in my case, was true. I didn't have a voice for a while there. And I remember for quite a long time, I remember a kind of panic coming over me, and then saying, okay, I have to make this person up. And maybe that's maybe that's me. I don't know. Of course, yes, I'm sure it has. I'm sure it has shifted with experience, absolutely. And I don't know if there's any way of cataloging or kind of recording your inner voice, so that you can think, how did I think when I was 21? But partly what the book is about is how, in a way, the book is kind of constructed on an architecture of twin betrayals. That's the architecture of the book. And in a way, a woman of 50 is looking back at her young 20s self and seeing a woman who betrayed somebody and actually caused them something terrible to happen through a betrayal of love. And then that same woman is then the same thing happens to her. She is betrayed. So it's like looking, but she's looking like across the void at her younger self, who has a completely different way of thinking morally, certainly, but also just her attitude toward the world. And yet there's a sort of essence of Pippa that I think is consistent. And I do think that we have some essence. I do think there's an essence, whatever that is, whether that's a fundamental character trait. I don't know if you could say that, if you want to call it a soul or some sort of essential self that remains static, or not static, but remains, I think, in a person. No, I don't think so. I absolutely don't think you can be objective with memory. I think memory is a creative act in a way, and very unreliable. And I think that memory is very influenced by our unconscious, as is daily waking life. I think that we are dreaming in part of our mind is kind of playing another movie behind our eyes as we're watching. So that's what makes it so complicated just to walk around, because you have all these different realities shifting through yourself all the time, and you're trying to believe that you're just walking down the hall, and get down to the, maybe that's just me, but it's an interesting question, because last night I went to see The Seagull, which is a play that's all about, I think, art as a disease. I mean, being an artist is having a disease, and that's why there's a doctor on set, because they really need one. And and it's about how it's infectious and it ruins people. And it's really interesting, because I felt this for a long time, that it's like a virus that people get, and then they never recover. Sadly, I really do. I mean, that was all I was ever good for, was making things that apart from myself. And again, that's one of the reasons I love Pippa so much, is that she doesn't have that compulsion. She doesn't have the compulsion to make something outside of herself. She is what she is completely hers. She is her own art in a sense, but she doesn't need to make art. And that I envy her that in a way, and I think that's one of the most interesting things about her to me.